This is the Burghers of Calais by Auguste Rodin. In 1347, the city of Calais was under siege. The people were suffering terrible hardship, and it was decided that a small group of the wealthiest citizens should sacrifice themselves to save the rest. They don't look very happy about it, but they did the noble thing. They gave of themselves for the greater good. This week, Alistair Darling introduced a whole host of measures to help people get through the current economic crisis. The package will be partly funded by a new 45% higher rate of income tax for those earning over £150,000 a year. Once again, the wealthiest citizens must sacrifice themselves that the people might survive. I earn £150,000 a year, so am I angry? Well, no. Every year when I do my tax returns, I say the same thing to my accountant. If you earn a lot of money, you should pay a lot of tax. He always looks around nervously just in case someone else has heard. Mind you, when I'm on the high street and somebody approaches me with a clipboard trying to get me to pledge money to some charity or other, I always just walk on by. I need a bit of encouragement to be good. Mr. Darling has made me a better person. The new 45% tax rate will transform me into a sort of philanthropist, an heroic figure in times of need. The Shadow Health Secretary, Andrew Lansley, had to apologise this week for suggesting that the recession might be good for us. He pointed out that during hard times we smoke less, drink less and eat less rich food. Now obviously there's nothing very beneficial about losing your house or your job, but maybe some good things could come from recession. Take the climate crisis. It's taken a bit of a back seat during the recent economic upheaval, but it still looms over us like an angel of death. Now that recession's here, maybe we won't be able to afford to drive big gas guzzler cars or fly off on expensive holidays. Maybe recycling will become a necessity rather than a choice. And that's the point. When we have the choice, we're not always as socially responsible as we ought to be. Maybe recession will take away the choice and make us better citizens. It's an ill wind that blows no good.
Frank Skinner with the Burghers of Calais, joining our own little burghers here. I choose my words carefully. Frank Skinner, do you only earn £150,000 a year?
Well, on a good year, I earn a little above that, yeah. But I'll fall into that tax bracket, probably.
Okay. Was this political or economic, Diane?
I think it's economic. I think people
doesn't raise anything.
People get very emotional about tax. It's kind of, it was the whole Thatcher thing. It's totemic in politics. But it's just another means of it's just another tool. We need it to raise revenue. It's also...
But it doesn't.
Well, some people argue it won't raise any revenue because people will just adopt a lot of tax avoidance measures, but it will raise.
Well, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which is always our Bible on these matters, and it's very independent, says that they're raising the top rate of 45p will raise £700 million.
Because it assumes a high level of tax avoidance.
When we're talking about £1 trillion borrowing, it's shillings.
Those figures assume
So it must be
tax
political,
avoidance.
Michael, rather than economic.
It is political, and it's interesting how the dynamics are changed when government acts. And it's very, very frustrating for opposition, because opposition is always having to react to what the government's already done. So as soon as this thing's announced, even though it doesn't take effect for 2 years, the opposition is in the position of having to say whether it would, quotes, favour the rich over the poor if it were to return us to the status quo ante, in other words, to return us to where we are today. So it's quite interesting the way that this plays.
Would it really make you a better person to pay more tax?
Well, I think it will. I mean, you have to remember, I'm not a politician, so like most people, I view these things in a sort of an impressionistic way, and I have a romantic view of politics in lots of ways. And I like the idea of the rich paying more to help the poor. I think that's how it should work.
But there's nothing to stop you paying more tax now. You could write a cheque to Mr. Darling, Inland Revenue, as we speak.
But as I say, I need a shop.
I'll help you fill it in.
That's what it's like giving to charity. If you actually have to do it of your own volition, it's so hit and miss. How do you choose? Is it the best leaflet or the cutest kid on the poster?
But if you're forced to do it, which is tax is forced payment, it doesn't make you a better person. Surely you're only a better person if you volunteer to do it.
No, I think I can sleep better at night knowing that I might
Been
well
forced to do
fund
it.
Yeah,
Mr.
but the point
Darling.
is, it's not that people become better people, it is that you get a better society. The British problem is we want to pay American levels of tax and have European levels of social services, and you can't. That's the problem.
But this discussion often takes place as if there is no redistribution in this country at all. The fact is, under the existing tax system, there is substantial redistribution. The top 1% of income earners in this country, probably includes Frank in that, top 1% pay 23% of all income tax receipts. So the top 1% don't just pay their own income tax, they pay the income tax of another 22 people. That, I think, is called redistribution.
But it is still a low level of taxation at the high levels than you have in the rest of Western Europe. It's higher than America, I grant you.
No,
but then do we want American levels of social
But you're
services?
making a mistake by thinking that higher rates of tax mean more distribution. Actually, there was less distribution when the tax rate was 83%. The top 1% didn't contribute as much
That's
as they
because
did
the
when they
top
paid
1%
40.
weren't earning so much
Because
relative
when you
to the
put
poorest.
when you put the
Also,
rates up,
I'm-
you get out of it.
I'm very struck by what Frank says. I mean, it might be one thing if we really did feel that our money was going off and doing a lot of good, but we've seen how inefficiently the government spends money. We've seen how many extra civil servants it's employed. We've seen how it spends, 100 on the National Health Service and gets a return of 10 in terms of improved service. I actually think government's taxing above 40%, it's immoral, actually. I think it's, I think even if people earn a lot of money, it's money they earned. And when government develops an attitude that it can help itself to pretty much half of what people earn, I think that is an immoral position.
That's why he's a Tory.
No, it is, and I want to articulate the principle. I think it's corrupting of government when it believes it can just help itself to half of what people
I think,
earn.
Frank, what do you
I
say to
think
that?
I think contrary to that, I also think it's a shame. This is such a big thing, the economic crisis. It feels so big. It troubles me when I see the political haranguing going on, because I really want to see a united front. When Gordon Brown got up this week and said that the national debt is 58% and that's the same as Germany and France and not as bad as Japan and America, I thought, oh, this is a good thing. It's a global problem. It's not. We're all in it together.
But you trust his figures.
But then, well, yes, but then David Cameron says, oh, yeah, 58%, that's what sent Dennis Healy to the IMF. That's when we're boss.
I think we've got
to know what the truth is.
When a man is about to fight an election, he says, I'm reducing VAT for the next 13 months. You think this is just for the good of the nation, do you?
No, let's not infect Frank with your cynicism. We've got to be
Thank you.
practical. We've got to be practical. In America, Obama will be dropping the Bush tax cuts for the very richest. We are all going to have to give up something. Why shouldn't rich people pay a bit
I
more
tell you
tax?
what, when you looked at it, given that it brings in peanuts, and yet he is going to increase VAT back to 17.5%. Indeed, the 45% was thought up when they were thinking of 18.5 or even 20, and they snuck out the increase in national insurance, which affects a lot of ordinary people too. You got the impression it was a diversion. It wasn't to make Frank a better person. How could he be better? He's Frank Skinner. It was a diversion away from real tax rises for ordinary folks.
There may be an element of diversity.
I'll take
about
that as
it.
a yes.
Don't say